Hello and welcome to Adams County Extension's next Facebook Live. I am Cassie Anderson and I am here today to talk to you all about tools that can be useful to help you in the garden. I do want to start off by saying that all of the tools I have here are the accumulation of many years of gardening. So there are a lot of them, and there's actually more than I expected when I started putting these all together. And you certainly don't need all of these tools to be successful in gardening. They all just have that little niche thing that they do a little bit nicer job at helping facilitate when we're working in the garden. So I'm going to flip the camera around again and we'll kind of go through a little bit of details of what kinds of tools can be helpful. I'm going to start with the little stuff first and then we'll go into the big stuff. Flip the camera around. So here we have some of our basics. I've talked about it in a couple different videos already. This is one of my very favorite garden tools. This is called a hori hori. It means dig dig in Japanese. I've been told. I don't actually speak Japanese. And it is a great multi-purpose tool. It lets you do all kinds of cool things. You can use it as a weeder. You can use it to, this edge is actually very sharp, so you can use it to cut not really woody things, but slightly woody plants or slightly grassy areas. I have a lot of wild and unkempt grass in places, and so sometimes if it's an area that's a little too sensitive for a weed whacker or string trimmer, then that nice sharp edge can kind of help you get a little bit of a head start on getting things removed. So the hori is a very nice tool if you're looking for something a little bit fancier for weeding purposes. I do have my dandelion digger. I don't use it much. My husband actually really likes to use it. We've kind of given up the fight of dandelions lately in our yard, so it hasn't gotten a lot of use. But you can use just a basic screwdriver for the same purpose as the dandelion digger. The theory is that the split tip down here actually helps you get around the edge of that taproot on the dandelion, and so you can get much more of the dandelion out. The more of the taproot that you get out, the better chances you are at not having that dandelion resprout. Next up, we've got just our basic garden trowel. This guy I haven't cleaned off very well, obviously, but it's going to be useful for any kind of transplanting, any kind of digging in the soil where you're needing to do smaller, finer work than your big shovel. Cultivators are useful for moving large amounts of material around. If you're trying to clear out a space with mulch, if you're trying to move things around, they can be useful. It can also be useful if you have areas where you let grass grow and mature out. It can really get in and pull some of that dead grass material out. Next down the line, we've got your bypass pruners. Eric's talked about these as well. I don't have any of the anvil style pruners. Most of the things I use, I do want that bypass action. These guys, you really want to make sure that you keep that blade replaced. We actually replaced these blades this year. Replace them if they start to get chips on them, if they start to get dulled, and keep them as clean as you can. You're going to get a much better product, a much better result if you keep them clean and well maintained. I can't say the same for my garden scissors. I use these guys sometimes for cutting like my green onions or cutting flowers off if I want to cut flowers off. Or harvesting peppers is a big one that these guys get used for. They're not terribly sharp, they're not in great shape. If you look, you can see that the edge is pretty gnarly, but they were inexpensive and they get the job done. So they're pretty good in that respect. Next up is your wonderful handsaw. This is going to be really useful for smaller pruning cuts, or pruning cuts that are a little too big for your hand pruner, but too small for you to necessarily get out a Sawzall or something like that. When they have a sharp edge on both sides of the teeth, then you get action both directions, and it can be kind of nice in that respect. The final pruning one that I've got over here is the bypass pruner. This one is really nice, a little hard to do one-handed. It's nice because it has this articulated action, so you can get a really big chunk in. I inherited this, I got this property with a bunch of Tartarian honeysuckle and large Mahonia plants, which had gone kind of wild through the property. And this is really good for getting through those gnarly, shrubby bottom branches. It's not the best tool to use when you're doing good detailed pruning cuts, so it does have its place, and I love my loppers. They get a lot of use, especially in the spring when I'm tidying things up. The other couple of things I've got over here, I've got a couple different types of garden gloves. I tend to go through garden gloves like crazy. I am a garden glove wearer. I don't do a lot of my garden work out without gloves on, and so I like these really fine soft leather gloves because they still give me a lot of tactile ability. A lot of people use the gloves that have the rubber on the fingers, which work well as well. I unfortunately have an allergy, so I can't use them that way. When I'm working with grasses or with other scritchy roses, other plants, I do like to have my long gauntlet gloves. They can work really well for protecting your arms when you're doing work on plants that are a little bit more, they're a little more liable to bite back. So they can be a good choice, definitely, if you want a little bit of extra protection. And finally over here I have this little apron. It's actually just a waiter apron. All of our Adams County Master Gardeners got one a few years back, and I find it really useful because I can slide my gloves and my pruners and my hoary in, and sometimes my phone with a podcast. And then I've got everything kind of on me all at the same time, and it's a really nice, convenient way to keep things accessible and close to hand. If you remember to put it in, you're not constantly doing the, oh wait, where did my pruner go? I don't know where I put it down. If you remember to put it into a pocket, into an apron, then it can work really well that way. I know folks who use overalls or have a gardening vest that works well as well. Alright, so now we're going to flip over to the big tools. Of course, the very most basic tools of any garden are going to be your shovels. You've got a couple different shapes of shovels that are going to be really useful for you. They serve different purposes. The pointy tip is going to give you a much better digging surface. I actually have 3 different pointy tip shovels, but I didn't bring them all out. Some of them are a little bit sharper. I like the one that I use the most often has a very sharp tip. And so it cuts through roots very well. We have this gorgeous big poplar, which sends out baby suckers everywhere in the yard. And so if you have that nice sharp tip on your shovel, then you're going to get a lot better results from digging in the soil. Next up, we've got 2 types of hoes, and I'm going to come around here and show you the difference in how they look. This is one of my very favorite large garden tools. It is called a stirrup hoe, and it is amazing in the vegetable garden or in other beds where you need to get small young weeds out. So the mechanism is it actually digs in and cuts the roots under the surface. And so it's a really useful way to get a lot of weeds out quickly. I started using this, I got one for my graduate research project, and we actually used it in my graduate research plot, which had a lot of weeds, and my husband was helping me that day, and he wondered aloud why on earth we didn't own one ourselves, because it makes such a difference in weeding. And then, of course, you've got your standard garden hoe, which is helpful, especially when you're starting to dig your rows in your garden. You can dig the row with the hoe and then cover it up just very nicely, very smoothly. You can do that with a garden rake as well. Garden rakes are really good for preparing your bed, preparing your space. They're going to be very nice overall for smoothing a bed and breaking up any clumps of soil so that you have a nice, well-prepared bed. And then, of course, the garden fork. This is one of the tools that I use for almost all of my bed preparation and almost all of my digging. You can tell this one has been through the ringer. The tines are anything but straight. We have pretty heavy clay soil here, and this one has been with us since I very first broke ground on our garden in 2013, and so it's seen some things. They are pretty tough, garden forks, but they are susceptible to some problems. In an earlier video, you did see Eric Hammond with a broad fork. Broad fork works really well for the purpose as well. It is a much bigger tool, and it is a little bit more expensive. I haven't quite made myself get up to the point where I can justify purchasing. And then your broad leaf rake is another nice tool. This one is just going to help you kind of scoop up. You can rake up leaves, you can rake up dead grass material. We had a big old pile of mulch from some trees this spring, and I used it to rake up the last little remnants. Once again, one of those tools that you don't have to have, but it's helpful. It can definitely make things a little bit nicer for you. And then I have this thing. Got this garden cart. I am a die-hard garden cart convert. I grew up only using wheelbarrows, and I thought wheelbarrows were the way to go to transport any kind of material. When we bought this property, it came with this cart. Of course, it wasn't that pretty blue at that point, but it came with this cart, and it is transformative. You can put containers in it like I've got here. You can fill them with compost, you can fill them with mulch, you can fill them with weeds, whatever you want, or you can just fill the whole bed. We've been slowly moving wood because we like more work. We've been moving our wood pile from one part of the yard to another this spring, and this garden cart has proved its worth time and time again. Garden carts are really great option. As are little containers. I reuse containers from the cat litter that we use. These were actually just household storage bins that once upon a time had vegetables in them, and now they're just the jack of all trades storage containers for my yard as I'm doing various work. I have one more tool that I also love. This is my string trimmer or weed whacker. It is an electric one. I don't have the battery plugged in right now. I like the electric just because it's a lot easier to use. You plug in your battery and then you can get off and go. This particular one has a very easy threading mechanism for the string, so it's very easy to recharge once you run out of the string. But gas ones are a great option too. The nice thing about gas is that you can go a lot longer. The nice thing about electric, if you use the system, like we have a lot of tools in this same system, and so we have, I think, 5 batteries, so we can keep going as well. But the batteries don't last nearly as long as a tank of gas does for a standard gas weed whipper. So that's kind of my basic little rundown of garden tools. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them, but this is just kind of some of the stuff that is very helpful when you are working in your garden. If you do have questions, you can definitely chime in on the chat, or you can send us an email or get in touch with us on Facebook. If there are any questions, I'll stay on for just a moment. I'm going to come over to the little tools so you can take a look at all of them again. A little more messed up now that I was talking about them. But otherwise, I hope that everybody has a great day and that you can get a chance to enjoy some of this nice weather and get out into your gardens. And we are definitely here to answer questions as you get them about your yard. Yes, we definitely the birds this spring have been incredible. When there's some chat in the comments about birds chatting, we have a lot of birds in our yard. It's been really, really nice. All right, well, great. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And we will be back, like we said on our Facebook post, we'll be back next week with some more programming for you. If you have any ideas about programming that you think would be good or useful, definitely give us a shout out about things that you want to learn about. And if you haven't had a chance yet, check out growandgivecolorado.org. It's the new Victory Garden project that we're putting on with CSU at the state level. Thanks so much and have a great day.